and welcome to the Art of Being Human. I'm going to continue from where I left off last time to talk to you about things that you can do to help yourself if you feel distressed in any way. If you have anxiety, if you have depression, if you're nervous, if you're having fears about certain things. And I want to get into this because a lot of people go through this, and if I can help them do it if they can't afford care, this will at least give them a start in the right direction to get the help that they need. And I remember last segment that I talked to you about not trying to smash your emotions down, not trying to put them down, but being able to recognize them, and the value of recognizing your emotions, and the value of understanding that you may be on a cycle, and that's normal for people to be on a cycle. But if your cycle goes deeper and you're more depressed, you may get some help with it. And I talked about anticipatory anxiety, being afraid of things that are legitimately coming up, but that you don't need to be afraid of, and then to kind of help to put that to rest. If you understand what's going on, at least you've got something to hang on to. If I'm terribly afraid of something, and I'm not thinking of any specific thing, but if I'm terribly afraid of something, if I can recognize that that this is anticipatory anxiety and then it's going to relieve itself, well, that's going to be a comfort to me right there. Or if I recognize that I'm having emotions and I'm trying to push them down and not experience them, and it's much better for me to know that they're there and know that they will leave naturally. They're not going to stay forever. And even in grief, the grief is very intense and it's very hard to handle, but it doesn't last forever. You kind of phase off unless you get into a complicated grief. And if you get into a complicated grief and you don't get help with it, then it can last for a long time, and you can also end up by having a clinical depression. But most grief is relatively short-lived, within a few days. I'm not saying it goes away completely, and I'm not saying it can't be long-lasting, and I'm not saying that it's not horrible. I mean, I've gone through all of these emotions, and I can understand that it is horrible. And the suicide hotline, and also crisis center for people who are veterans who are having help, that number we've posted up, 1-800-273-8255. That's available to anyone who wants to call it to get the help that they need. And I hope that if you do need help, that you will call them, because that's what they're there for. I believe it's a 24-hour hotline. Now, today what I'm going to start off with is to discuss security. What is the thing that we need most in our life? Well, I think it's love, but closely related to that is security. What is security? Well, when you feel everything's okay, when you feel secure, there is a home for you to go to when you leave work. You do have a family waiting for you. You do have your friends around you. You feel secure because you know you have a spot. You have a place. That place is yours. No one's trying to take your place. And that is your place to be, and your place to live, and your place to have your friends, and you feel secure. If you feel insecure, you never know where you're going to end up. I know children who are very insecure. They never know where their next meal is going to come from. They never know where they're going to be sleeping next. Is it going to be on somebody's couch? Are they homeless? Is it going to be in the back of a car? Now, security is when you have the places that you need to have, and they're there for you, and you can rely upon that. You don't feel secure if you can't rely on something. And I can understand families being insecure, because what if you're a child and your father is an alcoholic? You don't know what kind of a mood he's going to come in with. And when he finishes work, is he going to be ugly? Is he going to be really drunk? Or is he going to be good to you? And you know, for a child, that security has got to be there day in and day out and day in and day out. Because the only way they can grow up feeling secure is if they've experienced it. And where would they experience it? It would be in their family life. When they go home, their mother's there or a babysitter is there. There's always a snack for them. I remember when I babysat my twin sister has 6 children, and I remember when they were little, I was going to college, and to earn a little extra money, I babysat with those kids, 6 of them. And what I was, and my hours were like late afternoon when the parents weren't home yet from work. When they came home, I was there. And how did I handle it? I always had a nice hot drink for all of them. I sat them down, all 6 of them, around a table. I gave them cookies. I gave them kind of a snack. I gave them something to drink, usually hot chocolate, because they all like that. And then I'd say, well, what happened to school today? And suddenly there's a barrage of noise. Everybody's talking at the same time. And I tried to listen to all 6 at the same time. One person says this, I catch a little snatch of this conversation, I catch a little snatch of that conversation, and about after 5 or 10 minutes, they're all talked out, they're fine, they've expressed the emotions that they've had during the day, whatever they're bothered with, whatever they did that was good, and they got it all out of their systems, and then they're on their way. They're out to play. And I don't think that children should be so bogged down with homework that they spend all of their hours preparing for the next school day. I think that's ridiculous. Children are children. They need to play. They need to have free time. They need to learn to be themselves. They need to be creative. And school is the same as a job to a child. They've got to be there 7 or 8 hours a day. They've got to get up in the morning, get dressed, make sure they make it to school. Their parents take them or they take a bus or something. And then they come back, what do? They start working on homework for the next day. They don't even have a break. That's not right. I don't believe that young children should even have homework, but that's just my own issue. I want them home, playing, having a good time, enjoying themselves, and feeling secure, feeling the security of somebody being with them, someone they can go to if they have a problem. If they scrape their arm on a swing, they can run in, a Band-Aid can be put on, they can have some personal attention, and they learn how to feel secure because they're taken care of. Security is important. Now, as adults, and this would be true of children too as they're growing up, we feel secure if we can control things. The problem is we can't control things. So there is an attempt made by most adult people to control their environment so that they can feel secure. If I can control what my hours are at work, if I can control what people are doing, if I can be in a position of power so I know what people are doing. I mean, if I have to have that much control to feel secure, then there's something wrong. But I think we can say that if we feel secure, if we feel we have control, then we feel secure. If we feel that we don't have control, then we feel insecure. This is why bad storms is such a problem, and we're getting a lot of them now, because you can't know what a storm is going to do. You can't control how fast the wind is going to blow, especially if you're in a hurricane zone. You can't control whether all the rain you're going to have is going to turn to ice and it's going to be slippery driving. I mean, there are so many things you can't control. And so you try to control maybe your friends or your workplace. If you can control what people say and what they do, then you can have a predicted outcome. And that's the whole purpose of controlling. To control something, you means that you know what the outcome is going to be because you're behind it. And if you don't have that control, then you don't know what an outcome is going to be, and so therefore that makes you feel insecure. Supposing you're involved in a court case, you don't know what the judge is going to decide. It may concern a minor child. Do you have custody? Don't you have custody? And you're going to be in kind of a whirlwind of emotions because you can't control it. You don't know what's going to happen. So instead of trying to control everything, which is natural for people to try to do, I get it, but instead of trying to control, realize that you don't have control over everything and let that control go. If you don't have to control, then you won't be so anxious about controlling. And then if you can let it go, and there's a difference between letting go of control and losing control. If you lose control, you usually end up by participating in some kind of a behavior that you wish you hadn't. You know, it usually means that you're going to be fighting somebody or going online and saying bad things about somebody. You need to let it go. And somehow it makes itself right in the long run. You don't know what the outcome is going to be, but you'll find out when the process is finished. Now, you may have some anxious moments about that, and you don't want anxiety. We spend our lives trying to stop anxiety, but sometimes you can't do it. So going back to what I said in the last segment, if you're having anxiety because you're in a situation where you can't control it and you don't know what the outcome is going to be, you need to recognize your anxiety for what it is. It's because you can't control it. And when you recognize it, it becomes less problematic, it becomes less intense, and then let go of the control. If you're a Christian, if you have any kind of a religious makeup, you know, give it to the God that has it. I always say to my clients, because I had a Christian counseling center, and I used to say, give up your control to God because he's the only one that's got it. And the thing is, he does have it, and he can intervene. So you have to rely upon a power that's higher than yourself. And if you can do that, that's going to give you an immense amount of relief. But no one has complete control. And trying to fight your emotions and trying to stop them, and I know I'm going to go back to this a few times when I do this series, is the fact that when you try to fight them and you try to stop them, it makes them even stronger, because you're fighting to push down something that your body wants you to recognize is there. And if you acknowledge and recognize it, then you see you'll be a lot less intense. So fighting emotions and trying to stop them is something that a lot of people do, and it just doesn't work, and it only makes them worse. Okay, now another thing to get into here. The brain does not know the difference between a real and an imagined thing. So let me explain this. If you are thinking about taking a test and you're afraid you're going to fail it, as opposed to, I know my material, I'm going to pass it, if you think about failing a test, your brain is saying to itself, you have already failed the test. And then you get all of the emotions that occur when you failed something that you wanted to pass. We are thinking beings, but our brain is like a computer. In a way, it's a lot better than a computer in many ways, but in a way it's like a computer. It takes what you're thinking as fact. So if you're thinking, I'm going to the board meeting and I'm going to be ousted, I'm no longer going to be on the board, your brain is saying, you're no longer on the board, you've been ousted. Or if you're saying, I'm going to take the test and I'm going to fail it because I don't know the material, the brain is saying, you just failed the test. And what do you get from that? You get all of the emotions as if it has actually happened. Now, it hasn't happened yet. It's anticipatory. You're thinking about it. You know, and it's anticipatory. So you need to change the way that you program your computer. You need to say, I think I'm going to make it. I think I'll be on the board. I think it's going to work out all right. Then what is your brain saying? It's all right. It's going to be all right. I passed the test. I'm on the board. Now, truthfully, you don't know what's going to happen. And so this is where being flexible is important. You can say to yourself, I don't know, but I know it's not all negative. And I also know that if I flunk it, there's something else I can do instead. I knew a girl, one of my friends, who wanted to go to college badly, and we were friends where there was a group of us, you know, and we were all friends. We were all in the same grade in high school, and we were all going to college. And she decided to go to college, and she flunked out. Now, it didn't change her friendship with us any. We liked her just as much. But the thing is, she thought she had to go to college. We were in college. We weren't having trouble with it. We were all passing our courses. She couldn't pass a course. So she tried going to college again, the same college. They let her in again, and she failed it again. So she tried a third time. She failed a third time. And then she tried the fourth time, and she realized she just couldn't do it, so she gave up on it. Now, she wasted a lot of time because not everybody can go to college, and not everybody should go to college. If you can do it, then wonderful. If you have no problems with your courses, or even if you have some struggles, if you still can survive it and get good enough grades so that it's passable, then fine, then you're doing well. But to try to force yourself to do something that you just can't do, and you try over and over and over again, that there's no gain in that. You've wasted your time and you frustrated yourself because you've taught yourself, I can't do this, I can't do this. Now maybe you can't, but maybe you just need another program. Maybe instead of going to a specialized four-year school, you need to go into a special program, a special training program to become whatever career that is involved with it. You know, you have to know yourself. But the thing is, the brain is going to tell you, when you've been to college and you have failed 2 or 3 times, your brain is going to tell you can't do it. And instead of focusing on the I can't, and maybe you really can't, concentrate on something that you can do and focus on that. The real thing I'm trying to tell you is whatever you tell your brain, whatever you think of putting into your brain is going to accept it as an already accomplished fact. So you're afraid that you're going to go into a job interview and you're going to fail the job interview and you're not going to get the job. You are telling yourself, and your brain is picking up on the fact that I have failed the interview. And you're going in with the idea that you're done for because you haven't been successful. You haven't even had the interview yet. And you would be surprised, all of these things I'm talking to you about, the anticipatory fear, you know, all of these things, the need for control, they all meld in one with another. They kind of are associated with each other. They're all interconnected. So you have to decide that your emotions are going to match whatever you are telling your brain. And so you need to tell your brain more positive things if you're a negative kind of person and you do that. Or if you're fearful, I think I'm going to be okay. I've studied for this test. I think I'll be okay. It's much better to do that than saying, well, I don't know, maybe I'll make it, maybe I won't. That may be a reality, but don't focus your brain on totally negative things because then your emotions are going to catch up to your feelings. Remember, you can act your way into feeling, but you can't feel your way into acting, and I want you to remember that. You can act your way into feeling, but you can't feel your way into acting, and I need to explain what this means. If you act like you're more positive and you act like you're more in control, whether you feel it or not, your emotions will gradually catch up to it and you will feel more in control. If you are trying to wait until you feel better before you act better, it's not going to happen, or it's not going to happen very much, because what's going to happen is that you're feeling bad. Okay, I'm going to wait until I feel better before I act better. There's nothing that will cause you to change the way that you act. If you act what you want to be like, and you act professional, and you act like you're in control, and you act, if you're teaching, especially children, you act like you know what you're doing, then gradually your feelings catch up to that, and you will feel like you can control, you can feel like you're doing all right. And that's important. To wait until you feel better, that to act better is not going to work. Usually does not work. I can't say it never works, but it usually does not work. So your feelings follow your behavior. Your feelings will always follow your behavior. And so I've gotten up with many people. I've done seminars, and I haven't always felt 100% when I've done seminars, but I've always acted like I felt 100%. And usually by 10 or 15 minutes, I'm feeling as good as what I'm acting, because your emotions are going to follow what your behavior is. Your behavior is important. Don't rely upon your feelings to get you where you want to be. Rely upon your behavior to get you where you want to be, and the feelings will catch up. And that's something that you need to know. Okay. And we do live through our past pain. I'm going to begin this, and I don't know if I'll quite finish with it. We tend to live through our past pain. You will notice when people have a lot of emotions and they're very, very distressed, you're going to notice that it's based upon what they've already been through. If you have been through a bad time, say you've been abused by somebody, and there are things that are going to happen in your life that are going to make you think back to it. Now, it doesn't mean even that you have a full conscious memory of what it was, but if anything reminds you psychologically of something that's happened to you in the past, then you're going to open up the past feelings. They're going to be rushing up to the present, and you're going to experience the emotions as if you were going through it all over again. And you may not even realize what the incident was that your emotions are remembering. But you can get yourself in situations, or you can see situations where you start to think, and it opens up like it opens up a whole barrel of emotions, because you went through something similar in the past, whether you remember it or whether you don't. Your emotions are there. And one of the problems that people have with anxiety, and what the psychologists recognize, is the fact that when they re-experience emotions, it feels like these emotions are present. So supposing you get bit by a dog, I mean, this is just out there, but supposing you get bit by a dog, and you recovered from it, but you became a little afraid of dogs. Now it's practically a phobia. You see a dog or you see any other animal, and then you become very, very fearful. And even if the animal is caged and there's no danger you're going to be injured, you still feel it very, very profoundly. If you're in a situation where you feel emotions much more intensely than you think they need to be for the situation at hand, it's probably because psychologically you have opened yourself up to re-experiencing emotions that you've had in the past in a similar situation, or something's reminded you of a past experience, and all the emotions rush up to the surface, and what happens is you experience those emotions intensely as if you were going through the whole experience again. I think this explains a lot of the anxiety and a lot of the depression that people have, but they don't realize where it's stemming from. And I call it reliving past pain. Now, there is a section of the brain called the amygdala that stores all of those emotions that are so painful, and also stores the memories that go with them. So if you are experiencing something and you have some similarity to something that has gone on in the past, the neurons in the amygdala get reactivated, and you start experiencing the emotions that you did in the past as strongly as you did in the past, even though your situation now may not even be dangerous. But you go through that panic reaction over and over and over again. It's like a cycle. It keeps returning every time you go through an experience in the present that reminds you of what you went through in the past. You may not remember, or you may remember what the incidents were, but the fact is the emotions have been activated and you re-experience them. I consider that to be living through your past pain. And if you can tell yourself that, oh, this is just something, I'm experiencing something in which the emotions come from a past incident that was similar to what I'm going through now, that I think can give you kind of a handle to hang on to, and you don't get quite as emotional as you would have. So we're about out of time. I'm going to close it here, and I'll finish this up next time and get back to the grief and bereavement. But these comments are made to help you to overcome if you are having some distress and you want to have a new way to look at it that'll help you to overcome it. I'm not saying it'll take it all away. I'm not your therapist. You may need to get therapy. You may need to get medication. I just want to give you kind of a handle that'll help to open you up, so maybe you can understand some things better, and maybe it will be a comfort to you and help you. So I'm not giving you medical advice, but I'm trying to add some understanding to what you already know. So I'm going to close it here, and please join me next time, and we'll complete this part of the study.